And depending on how everything goes, we also have the option, this board has the option to stop the meeting at, I believe we said 10 o'clock. So if we get that long, hopefully we don't, we do have the option to push the next agenda item to the next meeting. We have a total of 6 items on the agenda for tonight. I have the proof of legal publication for all the items here. Call for their attendance.
Mr. Short?
Here.
Mrs. Volo? Here. Mr. Wildman? Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah. Mr. Spampanato?
Here.
Mr. Prescott?
Here.
Mr. Santola? Ms. Corsi? Here. Mr. Artuso?
Here.
Mr. Taylor?
Here.
If we could all stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, get into our first item. 1822 Lake Road solar project. Come on up.
Located at 1822 Lake Road, applicant Steve
Michelojak.
sorry about that, requested an area variance to allow a front setback of 59.7 feet where 75 feet is required, associated with the installation of a 24.576 kilowatt AC ground-mounted solar PV system on a 5.0 acre parcel having SBL number 08037.03-1-33.1, located in an LL large lot single-family residential district under section 350-13 of the Code of the Town of Webster.
How's it going? You were here a couple months ago, if I remember correctly.
Yeah, the project was approved, the homeowners have since then, they just want to move the location. The number of panels is the same. The only thing that is changing is it's going to be, instead of one long array, 2 shorter ones. Other than that, everything's the same.
Okay. How far, so previously, again, it was previously in the front yard, but that was all that you guys were asking for was a variance to have it in the front yard. Again,
Correct.
this property is set back. How close is it to the nearest residence?
I would say at least 500 feet.
Okay. Any other reasons for moving it, or I mean, what was their reasoning?
It's just a little more hidden where it is now, where they want to put it.
Hidden from their residence?
Yeah.
Gotcha. Other questions that the board may have?
It actually looks like it's more hidden from anybody that's around now. It's tucked more within the tree line.
Yeah, except that I think there's a road, a driveway off on the, to the right side
Yes.
To the
as
east.
well. Yeah, to the east. Okay.
It looks like it'll be within the tree line.
Yeah. Well, you're keeping it, what, 50, is it 59 feet off of the property line? Is that
Yeah.
right?
Front edge.
I have
You can read it,
59.7. Any other questions from the board? No? Okay. All right, with that, I guess I'll open up to the public if there's anybody that wants to speak for or against this project. No? We'll bring it back to the board for final discussion from the board. Being that there really was no discussion before, I'm assuming there is no additional. All right. Vote on seeker. I'd like to make a motion for type 2 action under seeker pursuant to NYCRR section 617.5 of the environmental code.
Second.
All those in favor? Aye. Okay. So we go through the findings, so Chris or Corinne, you want to go through the findings on this one? Sure.
Since it was approved previously for the same array, just a different location, can we adopt the findings from the previous meeting?
I put it on the record.
Okay, thank you.
It was approved only for the front installation of the solar in the front yard.
In the
So
front
we are
yard.
now
So now
approving it
we're
for the
Within the
setbacks.
setbacks, okay.
So different reason.
The application present no undesirable change in the essential character of the overall neighborhood. Although it is self-created, based on the size of the lot and the configuration of the array, I believe it is a good remedy for a solution to install a solar array. The request is not substantial based on the size and location. The application will not have an adverse impact on physical or environmental conditions in the neighborhood or general area of town. And that's it.
Yeah, anybody else want to add anything else? There is no, the nearest residence is quite a bit of distance away. There's really no residence that is going to be able to see this solar array where it is going to be placed either. So again, there's really no undesirable change or affect any surrounding properties.
Right, it's 1,300 feet from Lake Road and over 500 feet from the nearest residence.
Yep.
And it's everywhere.
Let's see, I guess, make a motion. So, I'd like to make a motion for the variance of the front setback of 59.7 feet from the front property line. Make sure I got that right, 59.7 feet from the front property line for a new solar array located at located at 1822 Lake Road, where a 75-foot setback is required associated with the installation of a roughly 25 kilowatt ground-mounted solar PV, a 5-acre parcel having SBL 03703-1-3133-1, located in a large lot, single-family resident, under section code 350-13.
Second?
Mr. Short?
Aye.
Mrs. Bola?
Aye.
Mr. Prescott?
Aye.
Mr. Spankinato?
Aye.
Mr. Santola?
Aye.
You have, from the last meeting, you have the variance for the front yard. For this meeting, you have the variance for 49.7 foot front property offset. You have 1 year to complete the project. I believe you still need a building permit for this, correct, Josh? No?
No.
Okay. All right, so good luck.
All right, thank you.
Thank you. Next up, 256 Birch Lane, if I believe Robert Masucci?
All right. Located at 256 Birch Lane, applicant Robert Masucci is requesting an area variance to allow a 48-foot front setback where 50 feet is required, associated with the construction of a 12 by 34-foot, approximately 408 square foot addition to a single-family dwelling on a .52 acre parcel having SBL number 063.14-1-58, located in an R2 single-family residential district under section 350-11 of the Code of the Town of Webster.
Tell us about your project.
So we're looking at doing a addition across the front. Our address, while it's 256 Birch, our driveway is on the Shorewood side. So the addition would be actually an 8-foot addition, lengthwise 34.5 feet, and then a 4-foot porch added on, so a total of 12 feet coming off the house, which goes into the setback approximately 2 feet. So we're seeking a variance on the setback across the front along Shorewood Drive, where it's supposed to be 50 feet, and we're looking we would be at 48.7 feet.
Questions from the board? I had an opportunity to drive by. The hand sketches that you provided were very helpful to understand what you were looking to do. I didn't see any detriment or anything for surrounding areas. Did you look at other opportunities for doing the addition other than just the front?
The way the house is set up inside, that allows us the most amount of living space, living room, kitchen area. The back half of the house is all bedrooms and bathrooms. So living-wise, for living space, the front is the only area you could actually extend for the addition.
Okay. Very good. Any other questions or anything from the board? No? Okay. Pretty straightforward. Anybody want to speak for or against this project from the public? No? All right, the board didn't have any comments. I'll bring it back and ask if the board has any additional comments. I'm assuming the answer is no. Okay. I'd like to make a motion for a type 2 seeker action under, type 2 action under seeker pursuant to NYCRR section 617.5 of the Environmental Code.
Second.
All those in favor? Aye. Thank you.
There will be no undesirable change to the essential character of the neighborhood. The location of the addition is coming off the front of the house on the Charlotte Drive side and is not going to look out of place based on the location of where the house is and the location of the addition. The benefit cannot be sought by any other feasible method. Any other location to add the addition to the house would not give the appropriate addition to the interior living space of the house. The request is relatively insignificant. It's slightly over a foot into the setback that's required, and from driving by or being within the neighborhood, it won't look like it doesn't belong within it won't look like the setback is inappropriate. No adverse environmental or physical conditions. It will not have any impact on line of sight from walking or driving routes, and will look in place. And I'll say it's not self-created, and that the house was placed previously to this applicant owning the property, and it really is the only way that you can add a porch and also some additional living space to it.
Anybody else want to add anything? No? I'd like to make a motion to grant the variance for a setback, a front, I guess that would be the front setback of 48.7 feet for 256 Birch Lane. 40, oh, we're calling it 48? Okay, we're calling it 48 feet. Sorry. I'd like to make a motion to grant the 48-foot setback at 256 Birch Lane, where 60 is required, associated with the construction of a 12 by 34 addition to a single-family dwelling, having SPL 063.14-1-58, located in our 2-family resident residential district, in section 350-11.
Second.
Mr. Short?
Aye?
Mr. Santola?
Aye.
Mrs. Volo?
Aye.
Mr. Prescott?
Aye.
Mr. Spagnano?
Aye.
You have your variance for the front setback of your property. You have 1 year to complete the project. You do need to obtain the building permit. Okay? So,
Thank you.
thank you.
Have a good night.
You too. Next up, let's see, 478 Lakeview Terrace.
Located at 478 Lakeview Terrace, applicant Anthony Aviani is requesting area variances to allow a front yard setback of 39.7 feet where 75 feet is required, and a side yard setback of 10 feet where 20 feet is required, associated with the construction of a one-story single-family dwelling with an attached garage on a .25 acre parcel having SBL number 048.19-2-36, located in an R1 single-family residential district under section 350-10 of the Code of Webster.
How you doing?
Good evening. My name is Brian White from the Commander Associates. I'm here tonight with Anthony, the applicant and owner of 478 Lakeview Terrace. We're proposing to construct a 3-bedroom, 2-car garage, single-family dwelling on a parcel that's currently vacant. This parcel is unique, that it's non-conforming dimensionally with the zoning code. The code requires the parcel is currently a 1/4 acre and provides minimum setback requirements. The side setbacks required by code are 20 feet and the front setback 70. What we have proposed is requesting a front setback of 39.5 feet and side setback of 10. I think that this is similar to the character of the neighborhood. That this property will be serviced by a septic system, which will be located on the northerly side of the parcel. So we have moved the parcel, moved the dwelling forward to accommodate the septic system in the rear yard. We have aligned our front most southerly garage corner with the front house corner of the next parcel to the east. In reviewing the town code, minimum coverage requirement is 20%. Although the parcel area is non-conforming, we do fall at 16.8% coverage, below the 20% maximum allowed in the parcel. That includes the dwelling, attached garage, and covered porch. Altogether, the total area for that is 1,766 square feet approximately. So, understanding that this parcel is non-conforming, we have made an effort to minimize our variance requests. Originally, we reviewed having the garage on the easterly side of the parcel in line with the dwelling, which would be a front-loaded garage. We have moved the garage forward to increase our side setback and be sensitive to the easterly and westerly neighbors. Available to answer any questions you may have.
The plan that you provided, you were mentioning the septic, the plan that you provided does not indicate where the septic is. Do you have approval from the Department of Health for septic at this point?
We do not at this point. We're actually going to be running tests tomorrow on the site. We anticipate that those are going to run smoothly and have a conventional system. Our initial soil data indicates that there's a lot of sand, so I don't anticipate any issues with that, but we'll have more information on that tomorrow.
Okay. Other questions from the board?
If you didn't ask, would you go to a raised fill system in the same location?
We would, our engineers would work with that. I know that there's setback requirements for a raised fill system, but we're anticipating it will be a conventional system, 10-foot setbacks.
Do you have the required setbacks on this property for a raised fill system?
In the North County, they're typically 100 feet, so that would be something that would be no.
So no.
We would have to work with the health department on that.
Okay. Any discussions with utilities or any of the other occurred at this point?
We haven't dove too far into the design at this point. There is public water available, as well as overhead electric, I believe, and then we'll have on-site septic.
And as you mentioned, so as of right now, you're indicating just a single-family, one-story dwelling. You've outlined kind of the dimensions of the footprint of this. Is there a design that was created for this, by any chance?
There are architecturals. At this point, we don't have those available tonight, but we can certainly provide those. Again, we've shifted our garage alignment to increase the side setback requirement. Originally it would have been 5 feet.
Sure.
We've been able to increase that to 10.
Other questions from the board?
We had another parcel, I can't tell you, maybe 2015 or so, another parcel within this street, similar size house, that also had the 10-foot side setback. So it's consistent with the most recent new builds in the area.
Then I guess I'll open up to, anybody wants to speak for or against the project, come on up. Please state your name clearly in the mic, when you go up there. Please state your name clearly, your address, and just as a reminder, we have a 5-minute limit for public speaking.
My name is Sandra Kluth. We live at 480 Lakeview Terrace, which is exactly next door east of the 478 Lakeview Terrace that Mr. Antupiani wants to build on. And I have 4 different items, and I did put them on line form, so I'll just read them in the time. Number 1, per the discussion with the owner, his intention is to construct a 1,300 to 1,400 square foot home with an all-electric service and HVA system. Per my discussion with Tom at the Energy Services Department of Rochester Gas and Electric, he needs to have one of their engineers consider whether the electrical grid in our area will support the construction. Our neighborhood is at the end of the line on this grid. We already have issues with neighborhood flickering lights, dimming lights, etc. So this would be more noticeable with a new home. Has this been done, and is it possible to receive a copy of the engineer's report? As a side note, I have a standalone generator, a standby generator rather, and since December 1st of 2023 until September 8th of 2024, there have been 8 incidences where, because of the electrical draw on the grid, it is below the tolerances of RG&E. My standby generator has come on. The only way I can resolve it is to shut it off until the peak is changed. The second item, there are no elevation drawings on the website. Per discussion again with the owner last week, he said there would be no windows on the east side of this new home or garage. And that would be a consideration for privacy. So elevation drawings would help, because I have no idea what he's going to build. Number 3, he also indicated he would plant a number of large shrubs or tall arborvitae on the eastern property line to create more privacy for us, as well as for the buyers of this home. They're not shown on the drawings, and what recourse do we have if this isn't done? Number 4, the demographics are such that more empty nesters and single adults are purchasing homes on our street. Would it make more sense to build a 2-bedroom, 2-bath, single-level bungalow with attached garage and upgraded finishes in the 1,100 to 1,200 square foot range? The side setback would then be more in the 15 to 20 foot range, which is the requirement for an R1 residential area. He would still succeed in a good return on investment, and it might not impact the surrounding neighborhood as much.
Thank you.
I don't know if you have any other questions. One thing I would like to say is that he's clear-cutted the whole lot, but the people that did the tree work, not only were they very professional and courteous, there was no mess on our property, and I appreciate that, I certainly do. But I also think that the size of the home that he proposes is much too large for that little area. I thank you kindly.
Thank you. Is there anybody else that wants to speak for or against this property?
May I, being the owner, may I say a couple words?
Your application.
Yeah, I just wanted to reiterate to my neighbor's concern. This project is the second of our rollout, and it's carbon-friendly affordable housing. And our first initial launch was in East Rochester, where we had a 1,300 square foot house, all electric. Our setbacks were 7 feet on each side. We were able to put the house in and without disrupting either side of our neighbors. When we come into a scenario like we're in right now, we make sure that we speak with our neighbors. We have that initial conversation prior to coming to the board, and I listen to their concerns. And when we meet with the engineers, we have that same discussion so that we're not disruptive or coming in as a bull in a china shop. We want to be a good neighbor. This project on a whole is all electric, but in that all electric vein, it's all LED, it's all high efficiency, it's cold climate heat pumps. The premise behind the electricity and the portion of this project is so that we can reduce our energy bill. And we're not running a gas line to this property. This will be a carbon-free house that we're building. Our initial lot size that we talked about when I had spoken with the neighbor, we weren't sure how big the house was going to be, because we wanted to just get a general variance before we went through an architect's drawing. So we initially said possibly 1,500 square feet. As we evaluated everything, we're probably in the 1,400 square foot neighborhood. And I did listen to my neighbor and did express that I would put arborvitaes with no windows on her side because of the setbacks being so small. We want to be a good neighbor, so we said we would do that. I have no qualms whatsoever. We put that in our permit. Whatever we have to do. Again, we're trying to work with everybody, and this house will fit the neighborhood perfectly. It's right in line with everything that's going on. That's all.
Have you spoken with anybody from RG&E concerning how you're building this home? Doesn't happen all the time?
Well, no, I haven't spoken with anybody directly for this location because of our electrical usage. We're actually using less than the typical home. So we don't really get that calculation. We have it once we start building, when they come in and they start discussing what lines we're going to run, then we have the calculations given to RG&E. But at this point, I can tell you that our usage is no more than a standard home.
Right, but what can you say to address her concern, your neighbor's concerns that the electrical grid is already, shall we say, stressed or appears to be at its maximum usage? Even adding one that's very efficient is still drawing more off the grid.
I would say that the neighborhood then has a major problem, because if we're going to add one house to this neighborhood and it's insufficient now, we should be having the conversation maybe with RG&E to up the whole area, because I know that there's a couple of houses that are going down the road that are going to be adding in as well. So I would say that I will reach out to RG&E, but I find it a little challenging to say that one house will be the downfall of a whole neighborhood. That being said, I will investigate, I will do my due diligence and present anything that is required to facilitate this permit.
Thank you.
Any other questions, comments from the board? No? Fred?
No,
Yes.
question for you.
Sure.
I heard your neighbor indicating here in this meeting, no windows on the east side, arborvitae's on the east side. The other concerns that you raised, RG&E, that unfortunately is not this board's
I
purview to determine. That is his engineer and RG&E's purview to make the determination. Would having the, us making a determination and putting those contingencies on, it sounded like that left you, provide you with some level of comfort. To your point, we don't have elevations, but at the end of the day, I know it's gonna be a one-story, we know what the setback is, and if he ends up, if we end up indicating, okay, no windows and arborvitae's on the east side,
Right.
does that address at least as many
That
issues?
addresses that particular item.
I'm sorry,
I'm going to say, that addresses that particular item. As far as the electrical issue is concerned, I mean, I'm on a first-name basis with the line people. They're at my house
Sure.
because of the tolerances that RG&E allows during peak hours, and it obviously goes below that.
sure,
RG&E could actually fix the problem by putting capacitors on the line. The capacitors absorb the energy, and then they release it as needed to make a more stable environment. The problem is they are so far behind on so many projects that even though his home is energy efficient, I have one of the most energy efficient homes in the neighborhood. I get that nice little thing every month from RG&E congratulating me. It doesn't take much to interfere with the power down the line. I understand he needs to build a home. It's part of his plan. What I don't understand is why not reduce it to something that's more demographically appropriate. The last 5 homes on our street were not sold to families.
sure.
So you're not looking at a young couple, first-time buyer, buying a $300,000 home with 2 kids needing 3 bedrooms. That's just, and because of the size, he's got a 900 square foot home next to him on one side, and our home is 1,300 square feet.
Sure.
It's not in conjunction with the size of the other homes on the street. I don't have a problem with the gentleman wanting to make money and build a house, but shouldn't it be more demographically appropriate to the neighborhood? That's my concern, and the electrical issue.
Thank you. With that, any other questions from the board? Good? No? All right. That, I'd like to make a motion for a type 2 action. Oh, sorry, public hearing is closed. I'd like to make a motion for a type 2 action under seeker pursuant to NYCRR section 617.5 of the environmental code.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Brendan, Chris, anybody want to make a,
Sure. Based on existing overall neighborhood characteristics, the application will not have an undesirable change in the essential character of the neighborhood or the area. Based on the existing lot configuration, there is no other remedy other than the variances to get the size house he feels he needs to put up there within the lot that is existing. The requested variance is not substantial based on the setbacks he's proposing. The application will not have any physical or environmental adverse effects on any the existing environment in the neighborhood. And based on the lot size and the need to get a house on there, the application isn't entirely self-created.
anyone else want to add to that? Um, With that, I'd like to make a motion to grant the, for 478 Lake Terrace, an area variance to allow a front yard setback of 39.7 and a side yard setback of 10 feet associated with the construction of a one-story single-family dwelling with an attached garage on 0.25 acre parcel having SBL 048.19-2-36 located in an R1 single-family residential district. With no windows on the east side, thank you, that's what I was trying to remember, on the east side, and arborvitae planted along the east property line of the property. Under section 350-10 of the Code of Webster.
Do we limit the building box of the house that cannot be any larger than what is shown
Well,
on
he
this?
said it might even go down to 1,400.
Well,
So,
this is 1366, well, plus the garage.
Right, plus the garage.
so the placement of the house and garage would not be any further forward than the, I think, property on the east, if I remember correctly,
Yes.
right? And the residence itself will not be any larger than what is shown on the plans dated, provided to the zoning board, what's the date?
Dated February 17th.
Thank you, dated February 17th of 2025.
Do we need to be a little more specific for the plantings? Is the staggered row to be equal to the depth of the garage? Staggered row of arborvitae to be equal to the depth or width of the garage along this property.
Well, I'm gonna have to start this all over, I think.
I'm just trying to make sure that she gets the screening that she's envisioning versus planting 3 arborvitaes, not that you won't, but
Sure.
potentially giving it a little more teeth that will force them to do what the neighbors anticipated.
Say it again, what you were proposing?
A staggered row of arborvitae to be minimum the distance of the depth of the garage.
For what, the length of the house from the back of the house to the garage, is that what
Yeah.
you're?
Well, that's what I'm saying.
Okay, or for the length of the property,
Well, I'm just saying for at least the garage. Right, the house, right.
gotcha. Yeah. Did you hear that, and do you agree, I mean, would you agree to that?
Yeah, so we would plan them from the garage corner to the end of the house, is what we're saying. Arborvitae
Right.
in
Staggered.
line, or you want staggered? Okay.
We're just trying to make it a little quicker for it to fill in. So-
Arborvitae's grow pretty quick.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, it's, okay.
Thank you.
I'll try to remember this and do it again.
Sorry.
It's all right. Is there anything else before I move forward?
No?
Okay. I make a motion to grant a variance for 478 Lake Terrace for a front yard setback of 39.7 feet and a side yard setback of 10 feet with the construction of a single-story, no larger than what is identified on the plans dated February 14th, was it? 17th, February 17th of 2025, the plans that were provided to the zoning board. The placement of the house shall not be any further, I guess, south than its adjacent neighbor. Along with no windows on the east side and staggered arborvitaes on the east property line along the garage and home, residence itself. Having a SBL number 048.19-2-36, located in R1 single-family residence district under section 350-10.
Second.
Mr. Short,
Aye.
Mrs. Bola,
Aye.
Mr. Prescott, Mr. Campagnano,
Aye.
Mr. Sotolo.
Aye.
All right, you have your variance for single-story residence. You have 1 year for completion. You still need to obtain a building permit. Okay,
Thank you.
thank you. All right, next up, Cobblestone Place, Phase 2.
Located at 225 37 Lane, Webster Legal for Realty is requesting area variances to allow the following. For lot 1, 20 feet, a 20-foot buffer area where a minimum of 50 feet is required. A 36-foot distance between buildings where a minimum of 40 feet is required. 20-foot front setback where a minimum of 75 feet is required. On lot 2, a 16-foot buffer area where a minimum of 50 feet is required. 36 feet between buildings where a minimum of 40 feet is required. 16-foot front setback where a minimum of 75 feet is required. 1.85 parking spaces per unit where a minimum of 2 parking spaces per unit is required. And a 0-foot parking setback where a minimum of 50 feet is required. In association with the construction of a 47-unit apartment building on a 5.0-acre parcel with SBL number 079.15-1-8.003/SEN2, located in the MHR Medium High Residential District under section 350-14 of the Code of the Town of Webster.
All right, give us a rundown on the project.
Good evening, my name is Jake Calabrese. I'm with Marathon Engineering. And to start off, I'll give you more of a background of the entire property. So hopefully, it sounds like a lot of variances, but it should make a little bit more sense. In roughly 2014, 2015, Pass Road did I guess we'll call it an overall design of 2 60-unit senior living facilities. And they did the full design for what we'll call phase 1, which is the existing lot. That was approved by, I believe, both variance board and planning board roughly around 2015, and then built, I think, soon thereafter. They did not get grant funding or funding for phase 2, so that's kind of why we're at where we are, where we have the existing facility, which would be to the, I guess we'll call it northwest here, and then this is our proposed building to the southeast. There was a tax parcel line created that kind of divides the properties into 2 5-acre properties, and that was completed in for a tax line, but did not actually be completed to be subdivided. So we have been to the planning board for a sketch plan review, and then in our process of what we thought we were going to go to the planning board for more of a detailed design, we found out it wasn't subdivided. So we submitted to the planning board subdivision, and then now, because of the subdivision, we are now going to have some variances for the existing lot as well as for our lot to complete the project. And I think, yeah, so we're on, if we do get variance approval tonight, we'll then go to planning board for subdivision, hopefully by the April meeting, and then soon thereafter, we'll start our full design of architectural and site design.
Questions from the board?
Yes, is this essentially the same plan that was approved in 2015? different developer now with lot two?
Yes, so I guess, yeah, you make a really good point. So, the building layout is just about the same. They did full design for phase one, which is existing, and they included the stormwater facility, so all stormwater is already accounted for, designed for. They did not do the site design for phase two, and that's where we're taking over. And we're proposing a 47-unit facility that is not senior living. It's going to be for general rent.
Was phase one and phase two approved back in 15?
Yes, it was approved as a single 10-acre parcel.
Okay.
So the setbacks and buffers within the interior of the two is not required. But the same essential layout is what's on here right now, just instead of a 60-apartment, 60-unit building, it's now a 47-unit building.
Yep.
But
not senior living.
dimensionally, it's, I won't say identical because I don't remember, but it looked similar.
So I'm going to ask you, is it identical to 2015, the footprint?
Is identical as they just had a very similar block on the site plan. We've probably shifted a couple feet left or right, but generally it is laid out the same. And so kind of to go back to the variances for the existing lot, those were all, I don't want to say variances that were going to occur when the property was eventually subdivided, but that is, the 20-foot was what was planned per the pass road design for phase one, as well as the buffer. The one that has slightly changed is the 36 feet to 40 feet, and that was just because we started a more detailed design of the phase two architectural plan. And that kind of takes care of the existing lot variances. And then to go to our proposed lot variances, the 16-foot is going to be off of the newly created subdivision line. That will be 16 feet off of the building corner.
That's the dimension 16.3 on the plans that I have?
Yep, correct, yep. And then the 36 is just the mirror of the variances because the two buildings, we need them for both lots.
Yep.
As well as the 16-foot is also kind of the buffer area to the front. I know with this property, front is a very interesting term of trying to figure out what the front is, so that's why we went and just said kind of the front of the building would be to the front property line. And then the variance for parking spaces, we're going for 1.85, so that is including the parking lot up here, parking lot back here, as well as 10 garage spaces that are going to be for residents.
So that includes the 10 parking, the 10 garage
Correct.
spaces?
Yep, correct.
So what is it without the garage spaces?
So it's the, what is it, 87, so it'd be 77. There's 10 garage spaces. And then the final variance would be the 0 feet parking setback. That's identical to the pass road plans. We haven't changed where that parking lot was going to be. So if it was a senior facility or what we're proposing, there would still be parking along that, what was a tax parcel line, which we need to see it as a subdivision line.
You said it's 45 units, is that right?
47.
47 units?
Yep.
Any discussions with I don't know what the relation of the developer of this site versus the owner of the senior living site. To, that you guys are gonna be joining?
Yeah, so Conifer has actually, we initially submitted 2 separate applications, and the town helped us out and told us that we should just submit one with the correct way, so thank you again for that help. But yes, Conifer and Brickwood, Brickwood is who we're representing, Conifer is who owns the existing facility. They're in talks, and they, yes.
So there's no objection from that
No.
point? Okay. Any questions from the board? It's quiet today. All right, I'll open it up to the public, if anybody wants to speak for or against this project. No? All right, bring it back to the board. I'll ask the board if there's any additional comments from the board. Assuming it's done? Okay. I'd like to make a motion for a type 2 action under secret pursuant to NYCRR section 617.5 of the Environmental Code. All those in favor? Aye. Findings?
All right, do we want to make a single variance for each lot, or a single motion for each lot, or
For the entire application, is the way,
application?
I would do for the entire application,
But
kind of the
since
way
they're
it's
two
written.
different tax parcels, I don't know. What will be easier for you to find in the future on some of these?
Technically, it is still a singular tax parcel, it just has a different identification at the end for leasing purposes.
Okay, so we'll keep it
I would
as a single lot.
recommend keeping it
Okay.
together.
All right, there will be no undesirable change to the essential character of the neighborhood. This was previously approved as two similarly sized units, similar, just about the same location that they're in right now. But the variances are needed only because there's now going to be a parcel dividing line between them. No other remedy, there is really no other remedy in that the way the parcel is subdivided and the way the plan was originally designed. This is the only location for building 2, and the location of building 2 drives several of the variances that are requested. With respect to significance, I'll say it's relatively insignificant as far as the individual variances, because they are within the parcel. They do not really apply to the area outside of the parcel. It's just within the development of the 2 apartment dwellings. Physical and environmental conditions, there will be no adverse environmental or physical conditions to the neighborhood or the district, as the construction is taken into account, or will take into account any water remediation or runoff. And it was all previously approved, it's just, now I'm just putting a dividing line down the center. And while the difficulty is self-created, it's really not a significant self-creation. Anything else?
I think you covered it all. Anybody else wants to add anything?
I will note that the variances requested, they're essentially the same. I need, like, building spacing, I need building spacing approved for lot 1 and for lot 2, but it's the same single dimension between the 2 buildings. It's not, there really are not 7 different variances, 7 different dimensions, it's just because it's 2 parcels. If that makes sense. All right, so with that, I will make a motion to grant area variances for phase 2 of Cobblestone Place, located at 1025 Ravenside Lane. Variances for lot 1 shall be a 20-foot buffer area where a minimum of 50 50 is required. A 36-foot distance between buildings where a minimum of 40 is required. And a 20-foot front setback where a minimum of 75 feet is required. For Lot 2, the variances shall be a 16-foot buffer area where a minimum of 15 feet is required. A 36-foot between buildings dimension where a minimum of 40 feet is required. A 16-foot front setback where a minimum of 75 feet is required. 1.85 parking spaces per unit where a minimum of 2 parking spaces are required. And a 0-foot parking setback where a minimum of 50 feet is required. I will make a note, just maybe it should have gone into the findings. The previous application, or the previous subdivision plan, had approximately 1 parking spot per unit. So this is less of an impact with respect to what's required for code than the previous one. And all of that is associated with the construction of a 47-unit apartment building on a 5-acre parcel, SBL 079.15-1-8.003/SEN2.
Second.
Mrs. Bola?
Aye.
Mr. Santola?
Aye.
Mr. Spagnano?
Aye.
Mr. Prescott?
Aye.
Mr. Short?
Aye. You have your variance, you have 1 year for completion. You need to, I believe you still need to go to the planning board, you still have to obtain all the permits.
Yep.
Have a good evening.
Awesome, thank you. Have a good one.
Next up, Dory Cottages.
Cottages located at 253 Lake Road, applicant Fiore is requesting area variances to allow an 11-foot eastern side setback where a minimum of 15 feet is required. A 4-foot western side setback where a minimum of 15 feet is required. 0-foot parking setback on the eastern and western sides of the property where a 15-foot minimum is required. Reconstruction of a non-conforming building is a secondary primary structure on a single parcel where only one is allowed. Associated with the demolition of a pre-existing single-family dwelling and the construction of a new cottage-style bayfront dwelling on a 0.4-acre parcel having SBL number 063.09-1-39, located in the WD Waterfront Development District under section 350-25 and 350-94 of the Code of the Town of Webster.
How's it going?
Good, how are you?
Good. Right now, we're looking at 253 Lake Road, although I'm going to make the assumption that the majority of the comments that we have are going to apply to 257.
That is
as
correct.
well. So,
Absolutely.
is it okay if we talk about the 2 properties collectively, or do we need to read it in together, or do we need to look at them?
I would advise, but I would mostly, but I would advise keep them separate.
Okay,
The records clear.
okay, very good. We'll try and do our best to keep it separate. So right now, we're looking at 253.
Okay. Just before I go right into the application, a little bit of background about myself. I'm here, Mark Fiore, my wife Andrew's here with me, my youngest son Matthew's here. This is Joe, one of our architects, and Ellen, one of our other architects. Our family has lived in Webster. Go ahead.
Your name.
Oh, Mark Fiore.
Thank you.
Sorry. Our family's lived in Webster since I moved here from Utica in 1991. We lived over on Longview Drive for a number of years. Barry Barone built us a beautiful house in 2006. And in 2012, Andrea and I were driving by this area, this sandbar, and saw some properties for sale, and immediately jumped on 2 of them. We always felt it was just such a unique, beautiful part of Webster that we loved. I mean, our front yard is Lake Ontario and our backyard is Ronnequoit Bay. It's just a very unique part of Webster. So we built our house down there in around the 2014 timeframe. I brought some pictures just so you can see the type of work we've done. There's 3 structures. This is what the front looks like, and we could pass these around if you're interested. And then I have a view from what the back of our current house looks like and what it used to look like as well. Around 4 years ago, I think it was 3 or 4 years ago, some more land, and that's why we're here tonight, came for sale, these 2 lots that we're talking about, and we purchased both of those lots. And then just recently, we purchased the lot that's next to that with all the white houses, if you're familiar with the area that's right across the street from Cast Place. Our vision, our plan, is to do what we came here tonight to do, which is to do major overhauls and upgrades of all of the houses on all of our property, and this project that we're talking about tonight was kind of the start of that. We love the area, we want to invest in the area, and we want to do some nice work down there. So we wanted to start with those back 2 houses, which we're here tonight for, and we went into both of those houses and started looking at what our options are and quickly realized that those houses really need a tremendous amount of work, and they need to come down and we need to start over. And so we understand the challenge for you tonight is that we are asking that there will be 2 structures on 1 parcel on both of the applications of why we're here tonight. The challenge for us is we bought these parcels because there was 2 properties on each. We still want to invest, we want to do, so, you know, the choices we're faced with is we either attempt to fix them up, which we can't, so we can't kind of do the vision, and you're going to see the vision, we actually have renderings of what we want to do. We can't do that unless we tear them down, and by tearing them down, I think it's a win-win for everybody because we're going to actually improve all the setbacks, and not only that, you know, with the investment the town just did in the park down there, if you're familiar with these areas, all the houses I'm talking about are right next to the park, so you got this big beautiful park and then these structures that really are old and need to come down with new structures. So I'm going to hand it over to Joe to kind of walk you through what we're trying to do as far as the application, but I just thought it was important to understand our commitment to that area and a little bit of background of Andrew and my family.
Thanks again. My name is Joe Chinley with Edge Architecture. I'm just going to follow up a little bit on Mark's description in regards to 253. Again, it's an existing structure. We've done extensive investigations over the better part of a year. We've done some geotechnical investigations out there. We've done some test pits to figure out what the structural adequacy of the buildings are. 253 in particular is lacking a fair amount of footings on the buildings, so we've done multiple renovation concepts for Mark and Andrea and Matt. They basically all generated with 257. I know we're kind of leaning across the lot line, but
Try not to.
the footprint that the owner liked really propelled us to bring that footprint onto 253 from a cost perspective. To try to renovate and upgrade the structural integrity of 253 really didn't make cost sense. So we tried to duplicate the 2 buildings from a cost perspective from 257 to 253, which is the rendering that you see there. Our ultimate goal regarding the setbacks is to try to center the new structures within the setback, within the property, and increase the aesthetics along the waterfront. We tried to pull the buildings a little further, in particular to the other property, but pull them away from the town park and leave them as kind of a 1-story building from a height perspective, and really generate a nice aesthetic along the lakefront. In particular to the existing setback on 253, I believe, is around 10 feet on the east side and around 5 feet on the west. We're trying to bring them back to about 11 feet on either side with the new footprint of the building. And as Mark said, just trying to maintain and ask for some relief to maintain the two structures on the single parcel.
Thank you. I definitely have some questions. Something that came to our attention this week, with the new DEC regulations, have you obtained jurisdictional determination from DEC for these parts, or for
So we-
253?
Yeah, so going through the new process with the DEC.
Yeah, yeah.
We have submitted in January,
Okay.
trying to get through their process, and as part of this application, one of the big points is trying to get, or asking the board to become lead agent as part of the seeker. We did receive a review letter from the DEC, and one of their points is to get seeker, to get the board to be lead agent in order to get that DEC process moving. So, I mean, Josh can possibly elaborate on their process, but before we get their approval, they would like the board to become lead agent
Okay.
as part of their new process, apparently.
I don't know, I don't have a comfort level of that right now. I don't know if Josh or,
Yeah, that was a request to us by the DEC. It's a bit of a switch up from how we're used to doing it.
yeah,
Typically, the DEC evaluates from their perspective, and once they've given the okay, it usually goes through the local approval process.
yeah, they're usually more qualified.
Yes, so we're in a bit of a conundrum in that the DEC is asking this board to take on lead agency. However, in order for you to come to an ultimate conclusion, they have to go through the DEC's process. So, yeah, there's some working out to do.
Yeah. So, I mean, from my standpoint, I'm not comfortable taking that on at this point in time. So, again, myself, I don't want to speak for all board members here, but, you know, DEC is definitely more qualified on wetlands and that side of things.
So how do we navigate that process with them and trying to close the loop with the DEC approval?
Understood, right? And that's one item that we're talking about here, because there's others as well, right?
Sure.
I know Josh is trying to navigate that with them at this point in time. So from my perspective, I'm not willing to take that on today, right? If we get guidance from DEC and we get, you know, I'm not going to say we're never going to be able to, I'm not comfortable doing that today. Kyle, I don't know if you,
Josh, just to clarify, the DEC is asking that this board declare their intent to be lead agent.
Correct.
Correct, okay.
Which is something that we typically, this board doesn't.
It does not do.
Correct.
But there are no other boards within the town that are interested. In other words, the planning board's not involved in this application, correct?
Because these are single-family dwellings, they are exempt from site plan review.
Okay. So this board, at some point, whether we decide to tonight or not, declare itself with the intent to be lead agent. That does not mean that you are making a determination on seeker. That's simply making yourself a lead agency. And then you would presumably wait till the DEC
Till the determination.
issues their jurisdictional determination.
Okay.
Until they issue that JD, I would imagine this board would not act on or make a secret determination. When they get that information back, and if you feel you're in a position to make a determination, you can do so, but you would be unable to grant any approvals on this application until that point in time.
gotcha. So I'm just going to repeat what you just said to me, hopefully I got it. We can declare the intent to become lead agencies. That should theoretically allow DEC to make a determination. Tonight, we would not make any type of determination until we get the letter from DEC. Is that
That is correct.
okay?
Josh, This is just kind of catching me off guard. I didn't have a chance to look into it. Do you know if it's a type 1 or unlisted?
I believe it's an unlisted action.
Okay.
Yes. But I'd have to confirm that.
Thank you. So there's that one item there. Item 2 for me is, well, I guess I have this question, why two buildings why two residences on a single property? I mean, I know it's existing.
Yeah.
From my understanding, there is no variances that have granted to residences on a single property for this parcel. Why do you need 2 residences on a single property?
Yeah, so I would answer in the following, when we bought it, all of the properties, all 4 of the current properties were being rented out, so it's generating revenue. Our vision of that is to, I would put it in 3 different categories. One is to continue long-term rentals and generate revenue. Number 2 is that we have a lot of family and friends that visit us, and we'd love to create a location where we can have them stay. Number 3, as Matt and his older brother Kaz get married and have families, our vision is like this becomes a place in a cottage where they bring their families maybe for the summer or different things, and the multiple properties and the way they were structured really works well for that type of environment, for that type of situation, I should say. And it also, I feel, kind of fits in with the area and with the designs that we're going with. It kind of fits into the whole look and feel of where the park is and how these lots are laid out. If you look at the Sandbar in general, there are huge houses going up right now on tiny, tiny lots. So if you look at the total square footage that what we're requesting of the 2 lots, we actually did we submit that?
Yeah, we put that.
We actually, as part of our application, submitted like what our 2 lots, as far as square footage to land is taking up compared to some of the new very large houses on very small lots is going up. So we feel all of that, like kind of what our vision and what I want and how we want to invest in and make it all look good and for future use for our family, all of that lends itself nicely to keeping both structures on both houses. If we were faced with the fact that we couldn't do that, we just wouldn't be able to do this project to the level we want, and we'd probably have to just keep the structures as they are.
So you've indicated this is for long-term rental?
Yeah.
Not for short-term Airbnb
Correct.
type rentals?
We understand that that's not allowed in Webster.
Okay. The reason I bring a lot of this up is the code also doesn't allow multiple residents on a single parcel either, right? And you've lucked out, you own parcels that have multiple residents on it. As soon as you tear it down, we go back to what the original code is.
Understood.
So I don't know of any other parcels in that area that have multiple residents on it, I guess is what it comes down to.
There is next door to the parking lot, the 3.
I'm sorry, I can't,
I don't know what you're saying. You gotta
I'm
come up and say it.
Sorry. I'm Andrea Fiore. Right next to the
into the mic.
right next to the Castaways parking lot, there is one house that they asked for 4 units, but it's a 3-unit family house, and it's right next door to the parking lot, which is next door to the property.
You say it's one structure, it'll not.
One structure with 3 units in it.
Yeah, and it's one
Yeah,
structure
I get it.
though.
You're saying 2 structures, why you need 2 structures?
Correct.
Yeah.
Okay. Other comments from the board at this point?
My only concern is since they're tearing it down and building a new one, what's to stop anyone else with lakefront access
Precedent.
from doing the same?
Absolutely, that's
So,
precedent.
If we do this, we're basically telling you it's okay to put up at least one more, if not multiple,
Right,
dwellings on your property, since we've already, if we allowed it,
right.
how can we say no to anybody else with the same situation?
Right,
Well,
absolutely.
and in the condition that, there is a condition where the code does allow a building to be torn down and rebuilt, and that's in the event of a fire in the dwelling. But it has to be on the exact same footprint as the building that it's replacing. And the one building, you're essentially doubling the square footage of the other one. It's not quite as big, but
Yeah, I think we based our floor plan design off of a 257 parcel, just because of the layout, which really was pretty similar to the existing footprint of that building, with the exception of a little bump out on that side. And it really came down to the economics of reconstructing both buildings and having the cost efficiency of building two of the same, one on each parcel.
And to your point, I understand the challenge and the precedent that we're trying to set, but the only thing I would say in regard to that is that when you talk about precedent, like I have looked around Webster, and especially in that area, and I don't know of many situations like the one we're in where we purchased and there's two lots, there's two residents sitting there and we're trying to improve it. And to my point, you know, if you're familiar with that area, you know what those houses all down there look like. And what we're faced with, you have someone like me who wants to invest in all of them and improve the looks of all the areas and improve all the setbacks. And, you know, I ultimately, it will be an improvement to that entire area and an improvement to Webster.
I can appreciate that, and I can appreciate that you see the conundrum that we are in as well, right?
Yeah.
Is what it comes down to. And you know, to Chris's point, you know, it's a precedent for lakefront, and I can list off more than a dozen properties that are large enough that if they wanted to, they could use this as a precedent to start putting multiple houses on their parcel. Take it away from lakefront area and you can start getting into areas within the town itself. And they can start doing it as well. Again, you've lucked out that you have a parcel of an existing non-conforming condition with buildings on it. And I get the economic side of it. It's just, it's easier and it's cheaper and you're gonna end up with something that's significantly better.
Yeah.
But for us, it sets a precedent.
Like I said, I agree with you 100% that it would be an improvement over what's there. And what you submitted, I think, looks great. But the minute you tear something down and say we're rebuilding it close to it, you're kind of starting from square one. You're almost eliminating the advantage you currently have by tearing it down and starting over.
Okay.
Just because that's, like I said, if someone else, and maybe they won't, but if we do allow it, there's really nothing that we can legally stand behind and say, well, they had a special situation kind of deal, because I don't know legally, but I don't want to.
Makes it a lot more difficult.
It makes it a lot more difficult for us to say no, even if it's a bad project, which I don't necessarily think yours is, but I don't know how we can put the brakes on having almost everyone think that this is a good idea to do, just because they have lakefront properties.
Other questions I have for you, utilities of these other, of these the new builds, would they be sub-metered from the main building, or are they gonna have separate meters? So separate utilities, water, I'm assuming this is septic out here?
Sanitary is a grinder force main right now, so that goes out to the.
Okay. Gotcha. Okay. Other questions from the board? No? Okay.
Yeah, and I think, you know, you touched on the economics. It's one of those, like you mentioned, it's a crazy scenario. You know, anything that we touch on these existing buildings requires us to come back here and talk in front of this board as well if we needed to renovate, being a non-conforming lot. Putting a deck or putting a small addition on it requires us to come back here.
For sure, yeah. If you go outside of the footprint, yes.
So going to that economic standpoint of, you know, you're putting all of that money into a building that, you know, for instance, is leaning 6 inches to the right and has no foundations underneath it. Putting that new structure on there has economic benefit for
Sure.
the owner, so. that was the kind of the direction we were heading.
I know several people that have been in similar situations, single house, but they could not expand their house because of setbacks, because of other regulatory and, foundations were not there, they jacked up the building, right? I mean, there's ways around it, is really what it comes down to. Again, it comes down to cost, is really what it comes down to. Other questions from the board? You good?
I guess real quick, if this project doesn't go through for you, you did say you were just basically gonna keep the 4 structures that are on there, call it a day, and it is what it is, that's it.
Okay. I'll open it up to public if anybody wants to speak for or against the project. Since there's nobody who wants to speak for or against, I'll bring it back to the board.
We had a letter for the 4.
I'm sorry, what's that?
We have a letter, just in case you're interested, from the neighbors all around that were 4.
Okay.
So it's part of our application, I think.
I didn't see it, I don't know.
I think she got that.
Yeah, we.
All right, we can submit that to you.
If you could, if you have a copy of it, you can leave it with us now, if you have a copy of it? No? Okay, if you can provide
I can
that,
send it along to Josh and.
that'd be great, thank you. I guess I'll ask the board, we have a couple things, right? We have the DEC jurisdiction determination, so is this board comfortable declaring its intent to become lead agency for this? And this is a discussion, so I
There's
mean,
no other board to declare itself, so it's up to us.
right,
I mean, we don't want to be part of the loop that's going to continue if we don't make that decision. So as long as we're not putting ourselves in any type of legal holding pattern where we declare our intent without actually voting on secret.
No, that's the appropriate process, is to, if this board decides, you would classify the action and then declare your intent to be lead agency. At that point, the meeting, or review this application would end until the DEC issues their jurisdictional determination. Then would come back to the board to complete the secret analysis.
we would have to determine the classification of it though?
Correct, and I did have an opportunity to review, I agree with you, Josh, on that issue.
That'd be unlisted?
I believe it's unlisted.
Okay.
As long as you feel comfortable.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman, I mean.
So there's that one piece, and then I guess the other piece is, we have the offsets, which I'm not really concerned more about the offsets. It's about the double residence on a single, on one lot. So, I mean, what is the feeling of this board for double residence? Do we even want to go down the discussion of declaring intent?
I think it's a dangerous precedent.
Okay.
I mean, every home along there that's been rebuilt, it's been a little cottage or a little shack, and then it becomes a much larger version of something. And the board has always accommodated, anything down there needs setback accommodations and height accommodations, and there's no basements, so then it ends up being tall. But as soon as one yes is given, there's
There's a ripple
series that
effect.
come in afterwards.
But you're saying,
I know there's 2 there now, but if we allow the 2 to be torn down and rebuilt,
There's
aesthetically they'll look better, but
And
once we do,
there's 2 now that don't have a variance at this point in time. So it's something that happened either before this, this board, not the people on this board, but before this board was really granting anything, or it was just built without, proper variances at the time, right? So right now it is a pre-existing, right? So as soon as this board, I think what you're saying, as soon as this board grants, if we were to grant it, then it sets that precedent, even though that there are additional residences on that parcel. that correct?
Yes. Well, and the intent of the pre-existing non-conforming situations within town, the intent is to try and drive everything to conformance where it makes sense. So I'm just,
You got your concerns?
I don't know the right answer, but I have sat in this chair long enough to understand that as soon as you dip your toe in the water, you end up falling in.
Yep. That make sense? And cut you off.
No, that's okay, I was just trying to understand. So, two houses, right?
Single
On one
parcel.
Parcel. What, it is what it is, we can't approve that.
Well,
Because
we
we
can,
got,
I
well,
mean,
we
we
can,
can.
but can't because of precedent.
Correct. That's the conundrum that we run into. I mean, is what kind of floodgates potentially do we open up?
Especially that.
Right. So, you kind of hear what the board is saying. You know, we can go through the formal vote on it, which I'm not speaking for the board, but based on what I'm hearing, it's not going to go in your favor. That would require you, you know, that basically stops this application. And then you wouldn't be able to reapply it 6 months without meaningful change. I think it's 6 months, or is it 1 year? It's 1 year. So you wouldn't be able to do anything for 1 year. You have the option to rescind the application. I don't know how, you know, at the end of the day, I look at it and say renovation is probably the only option. Again, I get the financials, I get all that side of things. But then you would have the opportunity to come back to us with a renovation, with a deck or other things that, you know, this board may consider at that point in time. I will leave it up to you if you would prefer to rescind it or if you would prefer this board to vote on it.
Rescind? What do you think? I mean, if we're wasting our time, we might just rescind it and go back. I don't know.
That's interesting.
Hi, I'm Alan Rosignol, the architect with Edge Architecture. So, we're in this quandary not only of the two dwelling units, the DEC has also been the quandary. So even if we were to ask to table it and make the revisions and come back to this board with the renovations that we want to do, I still need this DEC thing.
So based on what I've heard from this board, we are willing to move forward with intent of becoming the agency for this project.
So my question is,
Yep.
can we still move that forward and revise our application and bring a renovation scenario to you?
Okay. Do they have to revise it and then move forward, or can we?
No, because this board would be classifying the action based on the application as presented. And I don't know if there's a conceivable way in which the application would change the classification, but that is theoretically a possibility.
And this application is
We can always come
demolition.
back and
I think that the clarity that we all don't have is if I come back to you with a renovation, am I discussing two dwelling units and a conditional approval for a pre-existing non-conforming condition in that scenario as well? Because I don't think we have that answer.
And can you ask that again?
If I come back with the renovation option and let's say I want to put a deck on it,
Yep.
which we have to come here anyways, am I having the same discussion with this board to have approval to have the two dwelling units on a single property?
if you're not removing the dwelling and you're just fixing it up, I don't believe it's the same conversation.
Okay.
Any of the parcels along there that have added decks that have approached the setback or added an entranceway or whatever, yes, you still have to come to the board for that.
But yeah, if they're not fully removing
The removal of the structures, that, I mean, I'm not trying to speak for the board, but for me, it's removing them and then putting up two brand new ones, even though I know you have it. But it's really not your application as much as what happens down the road when everybody else sees it, like, oh, I can put up another dwelling because they did.
Yes.
But I think, as a board, we really don't want to set that precedent for what you really have as a unique situation.
So Alan, though we can't make a determination without an application, you know, what I've heard, and Josh, Kyle, correct me if I'm wrong, those residences that are currently there, those are pre-existing, non-conforming residences per our code. If you are renovating them, we will not be having a discussion of, hey, you have two residences on that property. We will be discussing, oh, you want to put a deck on, what, and then we're going to go through the whole process of, you know, how does it affect the neighbors, is it, right, I mean, so that discussion will occur. But not, hey, there's two residences on this property, do we even allow a deck?
Now, to raise, I'll talk to 253 to start with. If you raise that building, just lift it up and, you know, just lift it up and stick a foundation over it. It's like Legos. Does the applicant need to come before this board, or is that strictly the building department, or you still have to come before this board because the DEC has now added a little extra ground into it?
Well, yeah, technically, I wouldn't require it to come to the board if they were literally just lifting it up and putting it with no changes to the footprint. Correct. But because it is within proximity of the bay and it is under jurisdiction of the DEC, yeah, they would need to be involved in it.
You can't back this later.
There is that option. It doesn't usually go very well.
It usually doesn't work, but.
So I don't have clarity. When we built the house we showed you, we got to the DEC, we got all the proper approvals. Then we came to you and we built our house. And now it's changed in January. And I'm not understanding, like, what my concern is, we go back to the drawing board, we maybe look at enhancements, come back before you with modifications we want to do to the current structures that are there, but then after that, I spent all this money to do this all over again. We go to the DEC and then the DEC has a problem with something. Like, how do I get approval or know the next steps I should take so that I'm not just spinning my wheels?
I think that's what we're discussing here, at least regarding the DEC component of it, right? And I understand your quandary, right? So,
We don't know.
we don't, this is all brand new, right? It started in January, right? So you're going through it, we're going through it, you know, the town's going through it, we're all trying to figure it out. But Kyle, to your point, the determination would be for the application as is. We could do an amendment after the fact, right? To be able to get the determination from DEC. I don't know, would DEC's determination doesn't matter if it's a 10 by 10 or if it's a, you know, 5,000 square foot.
They're likely going to take whatever they feel is the right wetland boundary or.
They're just looking at the boundaries at that point, right?
Versus, you know, if it's a 10 by 10 or a 50 by 50, if it's within that wetland, they're probably not going to be, you know, they're not going to sign off.
Correct.
The lot's not even large enough to accommodate a wetland, right? Not, I don't mean definitionally even, but if there is a wetland with the required buffer.
That's what the issue is. The wetland is adjacent to this property and these parcels are within the buffer.
Correct. Yeah, the area of potential wetland that's been identified by the DEC is actually on the town's Sandbar Park parcel. So if it is deemed to ultimately be a wetland, then there would be a 100-foot buffer that would apply, and that would likely affect 257.
Oh, actually, both of them,
And
the lots are
potentially-
50 feet wide.
Right.
But I think as long as they want to move forward,
But if the property, if the building is already there,
Right, there's no,
the DEC is
They're
going
not
to make them move it because it's already there.
Correct, that is existing
Okay.
non-conforming before their new law came into effect.
But the ECU would still regulate a deck or anything else going on it.
Well, yeah, but then you can deduct, there's ways around it.
Sure.
To build in a buffer area. To keep the process going.
anything you do on this property, because of its proximity to Arundecoy Bay and Arundecoy's Bay classification, the entire bay is classified as a Class 1 wetland. So anything along the waterfront requires permitting from the DEC anyway.
Right.
It's just this additional question has now come up with the new maps and the new regulations.
A different process.
And a different process.
Right.
Now, with the houses further to the west, the two most recent construction approvals, the whole thing, the whole lot had to be elevated by 2 or 3 feet based on the calculated new safe level. How does that impact, especially if you're going to jack it up and put a foundation under it, how does that
So with the
impact it elevation-wise?
The new floodplain maps that were adopted last year actually reduced the flood level of Arundecoy Bay. So neither of these properties are within the floodplain, so elevation isn't a factor in this case.
All right.
So I think what we were hopeful for was simply if the board could take that secret action for the DEC work related to the properties, maybe. That would be the amendment, I would say, that you might be able to issue without taking action on it.
The issue is that for us to declare intent for lead agency, we have to declare the type of seeker, and then we have to, and that's based on the current application. So the one way around that is we do that, we move forward with it as is currently, and then at a later time, we make an amendment to that seeker to look at a different determination. I've done that on my larger projects.
The DEC determination isn't going to change based
No.
on the project.
Our determination changes because we become the lead agency, so we're making the determination on being unlisted based on the current application. As soon as that application changes, there needs to be an amendment to the seeker.
Did you apply for a partial jurisdictional determination? I'm assuming, because you're first stage with the DEC, so you apply for a parcel
Yeah.
JD.
Yes.
On a project. Okay.
Yes, yep.
I just think to keep it going, if we can declare the intent to be, and if we need to amend it later on, they'll at least, they have no idea whether the DEC is going to kill our project
Or not.
or not.
Right.
So at least we can let them proceed with doing whether or not they can do it. And if they can't, they can come back and say, we've amended the project, can you amend, that? I'm assuming that would still be legal.
Correct, and ultimately, Josh, I believe they'd be able to rescind at a later date if they're going to make wholesale changes.
They could. I guess my question is, if this were to be classified as an unlisted action, does it require a coordinated review? And if so, how would we be sending off plans that we don't have, that don't reflect
That
what?
we know,
Right.
right now we have what we know will not be
Correct.
approved.
So as part of that process, I think we'd actually be sending the plans, although they already have them, to the DEC. That would be one of the interested agencies. And it wouldn't truly reflect what I think ultimately would be proposed. So I think that's another potential issue with moving forward with the seeker at this point, when the board, we don't physically have the plans that would be associated with the ultimate end goal.
Mark, kind of see the quandary that this is stirred up. And I get spending money on architects and trying to get stuff done. And the plans that you have are very nice plans. To help us along, if we, lose the renderings, lose the, the floor plans, you have the existing, you have the existing footprint of the buildings. If we could get, essentially the site plan with the existing buildings, and if you're doing a deck or if you're doing something along those lines, identify that on there. And then at the next meeting, we would be able to then move forward with that determination in hopes of keeping the costs down for you, is what I'm trying to get to. Because the secret project, Josh is right, we would then theoretically have to take the plans that we have here, send them over. The plans are wrong, and I guess we could theoretically send them, but now the coordinator review is also wrong, then we would have to then, we're either delaying it now or we're delaying it later, right, is really what it comes down to. Because then we'd be delaying getting DEC's approval, because then we'd have to send them an amendment for it as well. That would be my preference, is to have you make minor, not minor adjustments, but make the adjustments to the site plan, take off the renderings, take off a lot of the other stuff, get us that, so at the next meeting, we can declare our intent, we can then do the coordinated review for the unlisted, and then we can move forward from that point. I know you're going to lose 4 weeks, I get that. That's, from my perspective, that's the best way I see us moving forward.
And that will move it forward with DEC.
At the next meeting, because we
Right.
would declare our intent, and then we would do a coordinated review at that point, yes.
I understand your position, I respect it. I will say that I have to give this tremendous amounts of thought.
Sure.
The way those houses are, it's not just a deck. I mean,
I understand.
Yes, and so that is going back to the drawing board, and that is, what is it gonna cost to raise the house? What is it gonna cost to put a foundation, without even knowing if the DEC is gonna have a problem with this. I've been through this is my second set of designs already. This was supposed to be the start of a much bigger investment in that whole area, and now that I understand kind of the town's position, we need to rethink this as a family.
Sure.
So I understand what you want from us, I just don't know if that's the direction I want to go.
Yeah, and I understand that, and, you're gonna need DEC's approval regardless moving forward, with much of anything you're going to do there.
Is there any way we could ask them just to give us approval? Like, I don't understand the new law.
You can ask them, I don't know if they're gonna give it to you.
Do you know when the request for the jurisdictional determination was submitted to them?
Well, after I got a kickback because they no longer submit on one of their websites, was January 14th. And they didn't have anyone at the Division 8 location that could take my submission, so I had to resubmit.
Yeah, it's 90 days from,
January
well,
14th or so.
yeah,
So he's looking at April 14th, give or take.
right.
I think at this point, we'll just rescind it, both of them.
It's all right, I definitely understand it. Thank you, guys. So, application for, application for Fiore Cottage is located at 253, with parcel SBL number 063.09-1-39, has been rescinded, and property at 257 R Lake Road with SBL 063.09-1-38 has been rescinded. So, thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Have a good night. Have a good night. You got minutes? Okay. second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you, everybody. That concludes our meeting this evening. Everybody have a great night. Are they still live?
Yes,
Are these still live, or we're not live anymore, are we? We're off? Okay.
Mike's still on.